feel like regardless of your age, you've probably seen the Goonies, and it's probably a little bit a part of your life. It was a pop culture phenomenon that seemed to embody what we considered to be a perfect adventure movie. Everyone was still starry-eyed and mystified from The Last Starfighter and E.T. the Extraterrestrial, so they were itching for their next fantasy adventure. By this time, Spielberg was hot enough shit that he could put his name on anything and anybody would go out and see it. In this case, Spielberg came up with the idea for the Goonies and handed it off to his buddy Christopher Columbus. If you're unfamiliar, he wrote Gremlins, he directed Home Alones 1 and 2, he wrote Christmas with the Cranks, and didn't break out until this year with Christmas Chronicles 2. He's also known for sailing around the ocean and discovering places that are already filled with people. Has that joke been made before? Well, I'm going to talk about the Goonies for a little while, so if you want to stick around, then stick around. If you don't want to stick around, then exit the video and live your own life. It opens on the inside of a county jail. All the inmates are being towed off to lunch by one cop, probably the only cop, when he encounters this. Which is pretty fucked up for the beginning of a kid's movie, but what are you gonna do? It was 1985. However, unbeknownst to the guard, he isn't actually dead. He lifts his arms to knock the guard out. I'm not sure why he needed to fool him so elaborately if it was that easy, but anyway, we cut to the entrance where there's just some guy pouring gasoline all over the entrance of the county jail. No cops around, nobody to see him. You can even see a cop car in the back. So how did our hanged man escape from the clutches of the prison? Well, he just walks out. He even manages to get all of his clothes on, his coat and his hat and everything, without anybody actually following him out. Well, this leads to a car chase all throughout town. And this is used as a means to introduce our main characters in their respective domiciles, which is a pretty clever thing to do. It's done very well, it's very snappy, it's a lot of fun. And this eventually leads to a truck race, just conveniently on the beach, that for some reason they feel the need to drive to the front of. I don't know why. We pan over a place only known as the... We're introduced to our mainest of main characters, Mikey, and his older brother, Brand. They're mourning the eventual loss of their childhood home and land due to foreclosure. And now that things are getting serious, that's when Corey Feldman shows up.
Hey, Mickey.
Who, if I can be honest, is an absolute joy to watch, and he usually is in most of his movies. He brings an energy to his acting that you never really see in childhood actors anymore. And he uses most, if not all of that energy to be a complete fucking bully in this movie.
First you gotta do the truffle shuffle. Come on! Do it! Come on! Do it!
This is Fatty. Fatso, or Fatty McFatterton, or Tubby. Actually, his name is Chunk. It might as well have been any of those names because this kid is relentlessly bullied by everyone in the movie, including the movie itself. Putting aside the fact that he's called Chunk by all of his friends, this kid talks about food so much that I have a feeling Steven Spielberg was just sitting around one day and thought, you know what would be great in the story? A fucking fat kid. You know how it's the 80s and being fat is still a punchline? But more on that later, because Short Round from Temple of Doom is about to zipline in through a goddamn screen door.
Hey, I bet you guys thought I was gonna drop it, huh? I know you would think that from...
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain.
So if you're keeping score, not only is Chunk the fat kid, but he's also the clumsy kid. Sure, Data can intentionally zipline through a screen door, but the second that Chunk makes a mistake, he's a pariah.
Let me tell you what, that's where we move in when we lose a house tomorrow.
You shut up about that stuff, it'll never happen. My dad will fix it.
Yeah, sure he will. If he gets his next 400 paychecks by tomorrow afternoon.
That's wrong, Brandon. It won't happen.
Now hold right there for a second because we're going to take a quick note. In 1985, the average income per household was around $16,800, which in today's time equates to about $38,000. And if Brand's quip about his dad needing the next 400 paychecks was even remotely close, it would probably equate to around $300,000 in today's time. And you're probably asking, why does that matter? And I will get to that later, I'm just getting it out of the way right now. We're actually going to go back for a minute. Do you remember when Fat Tits was standing outside Mikey's gate dancing for approval? Let's actually let that play out for a second to see how he's let in.
Thanks a lot. You guys, you're not gonna believe me.
What the fuck was that all about? If you're unfamiliar, this is what's known as a Rube Goldberg machine. The concept was created by a cartoonist of the same name, whose sole intention was to design the most overly complicated series of mechanisms and events that would accomplish a very simple task.
Now here's what happens. You see, waiter places cat B on pile of dirty dishes A. Now cat B sees mouse C. Of course, this is a stuffed mouse because he must be used for the next waiter. Now, cat jumps on mouse C, causing lever D to lift lighted candle E, which ignites fuse F and sets off bomb G, opening door H very gently.
So why is all of that in this movie? I have no idea. They're pretty cool, I guess, but it doesn't really go into who makes the machines or anything. My first guess is that it would be Data, because he's always screwing around with gadgets. But does he zipline into their front yard every day to slip a new balloon on the fire bellow? Did he bring the chicken, or did the family supply the chicken? Why are they just letting this kid come over and make stupid-ass additions to their house? I think the simplest answer is that somebody thought it would be cool to put in this movie because it's mystical and shit.
See Data drop by.
Hi, Mrs. Walsh. How are you?
Boys, this is Rosalita. Rosalita's going to help us with the packing just until my arm is better. Boys, Rosalita doesn't speak a word of English.
Wait, what? The hell kind of sense does it make to hire a personal maid that you can't actually communicate with? Like, how did she even get hired? Did they go through a service, or did she just, like, find her on the street and was like, hey, you're ethnic, want to clean my house? Not to mention the fact that they're so strapped for cash, but at the same time they have enough money to spend on a maid instead of just getting the one of 17 kids in the house to help. Like, does she even have a plan on how this is supposed to work anyway?
I know some of you have taken some Spanish in school.
Well, Mrs. Walsh, I speak perfect Spanish. And if it's any help to you, I'd be glad to communicate with Rosalita.
You're a lifesaver, Clark. Come with us, will you?
So skipping forward a little bit, we follow Mikey and his brother and all of his dickhead friends upstairs for them to completely disregard everything that Mikey's saying. Kind of like real little kids. Well, I guess this is the most realistic part of this entire movie.
I got you right where I want you. Come on, guys. It's dusty in here. My hay fever's acting up, and you always break something. What?
Come here and make me feel like a woman. Come on, give me a nice wet licorice kiss.
I gotcha. Now get out from behind there. You're ruining the painting. You're ruining my joke.
Like, what a little jerk off. So they clamor around in the attic for a little while until Mikey finds a map. Unfortunately, it's encased in glass, so what does this asshole do?
Chunk!
He gives the map to Chunk, knowing that not only will he break it, but he will break it on timing cue. So they look over the map, and Mikey tells his friends about the tale of One-Eyed Willie, which is a euphemism for penis. The story of One-Eyed Willie is that he was a pirate, and he had a lot of fucking treasure, and then he was chased by the British Armada towards a cave, and then they shot the cave caved in on the cave, and they were left there to die. So instead of trying to make an escape, One-Eyed Willie instead decides to kill all of his men and put booby traps everywhere to prevent anybody from getting to it. So I guess One-Eyed Willie was a real piece of shit. But, I mean, he was a pirate, so I guess that's kind of his job. You might be wondering, how did the map get out if everyone died? How did this secret get out? Well, you know what? They actually answer that.
But if he killed all his men, how did the map or the story get out?
See, I asked my dad the same question. He said one of the guys must have gotten out with the map and,
Hey, Mike,
and the...
I believe you.
Never mind, they totally don't explain it. Mikey attempts to give a rousing speech to the group in hopes of finding the treasure in order to save the Goondocks. But kids being kids, they all get sidetracked and walk away. So Mikey grabs the doubloon that came with the map as well as the map itself, and wait, who are these assholes?
Perkins, Troy's father.
We know who Toy is. He's such a cheap guy.
My dad's not home, Mr. Perkins.
Is your mommy here?
No, sir. Actually, she's out at the market buying Pampers for all us kids.
Papers, Joe. So you can give these papers to your father to read through and sign.
Oh, their motivation. That's what they are. After a genuinely touching moment between Mikey and Brand, he ties his brother up with his friends and leaves him for dead.
What are you doing? It took him 376 lawnmower jobs to pay for that. It's his most favorite thing in the world.
How did it take him 376 lawnmower jobs to pay for a bike? I mean, I guess it could be a nice bike, but like, what was he charging, like 50 cents a lawn? Does he really think his time is worth that little? Fuck, what am I doing with my life? So as the boys skirt about town, Brand finally manages to escape, and his mom says this.
Don't you come home without your brother, or I'll commit Hare Krishna.
That's Harry Carey, Ma.
That's exactly what I said.
You know what would be a funny joke? If the mom said she was gonna commit Japanese ritualistic suicide by disemboweling herself with a samurai sword. So Brand takes the little girl's bike and goes after them. We get some sweet 80s shots of kids riding bikes.
I guess it's in trouble, double O negative.
And James mine 007, not double negative.
You guys, I'm hungry. I know when my stomach growls, there's trouble. Shut up, Chunk. And you make me go up this big hill, and instead you give me a Twinkie. Now I'm gonna be late for dinner. My mom's gonna yell at me, and she's not gonna let me eat my dinner, and she's gonna punish me. Oh, you guys. Anybody got kids, Ma? Baby Ruth?
So the kids find the landmark they're looking for with Brand not far behind.
Troy, you touch that mirror again, I swear to God I'm gonna smack you in the face.
Brand embarrassingly runs into the ladies, Andy and Steph, and some rapist dude. The day rapist offers to give Brand a ride when his true intentions are actually to kill Brand. After Brand's untimely death, the kids somehow manage to make their way to a cabin in which they run into these douchebags. For a reason that escapes me, Mama Fratelli tries to pretend like this is an actual restaurant where they serve food instead of just saying, "Hey, get the fuck out of here, kids, you're not supposed to be here, this is private property." I guess they needed more time to set up the mentally challenged, physically disabled man they have chained up in the basement. They also needed a chance to remind you of how Italian these people are, because this guy sings opera all the time.
Una furtiva lagrima negli occhi.
Mikey gets startled jump scare style by his brother Brand that, again, somehow manages to find them out there. I mean, it's not like they left their bikes right outside the house or anything, but you know what, let's just move on. Everyone's already pretty terrified of the Fratellis and dying, but then Mikey says, "This is our time," and that's pretty much all they needed to decide. It seems ridiculous to me that the treasure hasn't been found since this place is so fucking easy to find. Did the girls get a ride all the way home just so they can turn around and walk right back into the woods? Or did they get out and follow Brand? If so, why didn't Brand come with them? Why was he scared? God damn it. We're just gonna move forward. They bullshit around for a little while, and there's a lot of detective work kind of happening in the background of all the conversations that are happening. Like, you can kind of hear Mikey talking about where they need to be going and why, but they really don't get into it all that much.
Here's go up. Right about here must have been when we said we gotta get to the lowest spot. We need to talk to yourself again, Mike.
They happen to find the entrance they're looking for underneath the fireplace in the basement. So Data finds a money printing machine and mistakes the counterfeit bills for real money, which, I mean, he's a kid, so what are you gonna do? But at the same time, he's a big fan of 007, and I'm pretty sure the counterfeit bills have probably played an important role. I don't know, I really haven't seen any of them. The Fratellis come back earlier than anticipated.
Come on, eat my pepperoni then. You want your pepperoni? Huh? Come on, come on!
All around me are familiar faces.
And amidst them trying to be quiet, they find a dead body in the basement. A dead body that they lock up inside a freezer with Chunk and just forget about him pretty much entirely. Like, shut up, fatty. Mikey's gotta make another rousing speech for everyone.
It all starts here.
But seriously, they don't notice him for like a couple of minutes that he's just left behind, or at least they don't make any mention of it. So when they finally notice him, they're like, oh, you know how it was too dangerous for us to go up before, so we had to come down here? Well, you have to do that now to get us help. Alright, bye. So our adventure formally begins, and we continue the trend of everybody talking over one another.
And a couple big guys stomp me. Anything.
Hey, who is that? Oh, step! Watch out! Will you watch out?
Data, come on.
So Chunk escapes, but then immediately gets captured by the people he was running away from in the first place, like a fucking idiot. Now, I don't claim to know the layout of this town, but there's this scene where all these kids are screwing around with pipes trying to get the attention of the people above them, when they're actually underneath a country club. But how far did they walk before they were able to get underneath that country club, or how close is the country club to the beach? Because it really doesn't seem like they would correlate or make much sense at all. I know I'm looking too much into this, but this is the whole point of this video, so I don't know, I'm wasting my time. Here's a bunch of naked old guys in a shower. There you go. While they convenience their way through this situation, I just want to take a moment to say that I don't think this movie is bad at all, really. It's just dumb. Dumb and bad aren't always synonymous, and I understand that. I also understand that this movie takes place in a universe where these kids go on these adventures all the time, where fantastical coincidences hit them at every turn, like they're in a Hardy Boys novel or something, almost as if it's a parody in itself. I want to believe that that's what this is, but I don't think it is. At the time, this movie seemed more like an adventure flick hoisted upon the world in the same way Battle Royale modes have been shoved into every game. They knew people wouldn't care, so all this little shit really didn't matter. It just gets a bit frustrating when mystery solving is replaced with happenstancing. I know it's starting to sound like I'm calling this movie bad if I'm spending so much time trashing every aspect of its story. I'm just trying to point out the difference between a story happening due to a connecting series of events taking place, and a series of events taking place because they need a story to happen. At a point it feels forced, but this movie is presented so well through its writing, characters, cinematography, set design, and a number of other things that it hides a lot of the bullshit that they need to happen. Because if it didn't happen, then the story wouldn't happen, and it will happen whether it has reasoning or not. So Chunk is being psychologically tortured by the Fratellis, where he easily gives up the whereabouts of his friends. They don't believe him, but he continues on and tells them about the treasure. They believe him and go after them. Now this whole sequence is lazy. Why couldn't they have just known about the treasure to begin with? Here, let's do a little story rewrite that makes more sense. It adds more to the story, but doesn't take anything out. The Fratellis already know about the treasure. They devised a plan to steal the treasure map from the local museum, but the holder of the map gets separated from the two. He gets pinched, but he stashes the map somewhere beforehand. Before he's able to make a phone call to the others, Data picks it up and excitedly recognizes it as a way to save the Goondocks. As a fan of James Bond, it wouldn't have been out of character for him to do some investigating. So he takes it, ziplines in, and the movie continues as normal. The reason they find the map in the first place is because Mikey's dad works at the museum and stores some stuff in the attic. But that's the reason they find the map? It doesn't matter that his dad works there for any other reason. He's barely even in the movie. He doesn't give them a tip or lead them in the right direction or anything. The Fratellis just happen to be in the right place at the right time. Coincidentally. In their quote-unquote hideout on this beach, next to a fucking country club hours after they make a daring escape from the whole police force of this godforsaken town. So the gang comes across a dead body that was referenced earlier as an explorer that was trying to find the treasure before them. They see that he's killed by a trap, But they pay no mind to it because they find something that's relevant to their mystery. Not even 30 seconds later, even though Mikey has seen the trap and the dead body, and he mentions it earlier because he knows the story by heart, he decides to just pull this trap. I mean, he's a kid, so how could he have known? But I mean, oh wait, 1 second, I gotta watch this Rube Goldberg machine. Wow. What were we talking about?